Are you ready to talk about love as a midlifer?
Sure, I'll throw another cliche in there. Can you just feel the love in this episode? It's going to
So
be.
much love. I'm wearing my red.
Oh, I didn't even think to do that. Oh well, yeah. You're more you love Mike. I guess is what we're trying to say.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Andrew.
And we're the Midlife Guys. So, as you know, this week, or Valentine's Day is this week. Many people don't like Valentine's Day because they see it as a ploy by the card makers and flower folks and chocolate makers as nothing more than a way to boost sales. Others don't like it. No, that's true. Others don't like it because it's a reminder of something that they may not have, which is true love. But Valentine's Day does mean a lot to a significant portion of the population. And you know how I know that. Birth rates. The Social Security Administration loves to highlight the fact that there's quite a baby boom at 9 months right after Valentine's Day. So clearly it is still a day that brings couples together. But at the heart of Valentine's Day, wink, wink, is supposed to be a celebration of love. Love is a deep affection of others that could take the form of affection and appreciation for a parent or a child. It could also be a romantic form of love with a spouse or a partner. Now, while the construct of love remains the same in every generation, midlife men and women have quite different perspectives on relationships than earlier generations. We've discussed this in a previous episode, but the marriage rates among midlife men and women is about 10 percentage points lower than Gen X and about half the rate of the boomer generation. That's not to say that midlife men and women aren't in a relationship. They may have just decided they don't want to be married to their partner. And that's completely fair. There is no law that says that a couple has to be married in order to be in love or to raise a family. So that's really what this episode's going to be about. Redefine how midlifers are redefining love and what that looks like, both the ups and the downs. So, Andrew, are you ready to talk about love as a midlifer?
Sure, I'll throw another cliche in there. Can you just feel the love in this episode? It's going to be
so much love. I'm wearing my red.
Oh, I didn't even think to do that. Oh well, yeah. You're more you love Mike. I guess is what we're trying to say. I will say I didn't know we had talked about kind of this topic a little bit in advance, and I found two interesting statistics that I thought were kind of nice and put a smile on my face. It might be a good way to sort of start the conversation. And so one was that globally 74% of people say that they feel loved, which I thought was really nice and kind of higher than I thought it was going to be, so that's awesome. And then among millennials, the same poll, which was done in like 30 some different countries in 2024, so among millennials, 84% are satisfied or happy with their partner or spouse, which I thought was also kind of nice. So a lot of people love love, maybe, is what we can kind of start with.
Absolutely. And I'm hoping that this conversation today will be optimistic because there are some things that are, unusual, as we'll discuss later. But I think that there's a nice silver lining to all of it. So let's kick things off. Yep. I love it. So where have midlife men and women found their partner or spouse? Historically speaking, everyone, and I do mean everyone, has found the love of their life in real life. They met at school, they met at work, they met at a wedding, they met at church, or through mutual friends. These IRL encounters continue to be the predominant way in which midlifers have met someone. So let's take a look at the actual data. And this comes from the Knot. Here's the statistical breakdown. 16% found love from friends in common, 15% at school, 10% at work, 9% at a social setting, 8% were high school sweethearts, 5% from social networks, 4% from being childhood friends, 3% from church or religious institutions. 27% found their significant other through a dating app or online dating site. But as you can see, that's only about a quarter when, still the largest section of the pie there is from real life situations. I think it's really important to take a pause here um, and stress a point. There's a tremendous amount of data about how midlifers, especially older millennials and Gen X, um, marriage rate data. So
Uh-huh.
the reason being, which should come as no surprise, is governments, especially the tax man, because the tax man cometh for all of us, track marriage statistics. A lot of publications see that that number that I mentioned earlier about lower marriage rates among millennials and bemoan the fact that midlifer marriage rates are lower than boomers and the silent generation. However, Pew Research took a good perspective and started researching what percentage of couples cohabitate, especially among midlifers. So that range is about 8 to 12%. So when you add that to the marriage numbers, you actually get a number similar to what you saw with boomers and the silent generation. It just happens to be that a lot more midlifers aren't getting married in the traditional sense, but they are still in a lifelong committed relationship. But I'm curious to hear what our listeners think. Are you in a traditional marriage? Are you in a partnership? Are you in a committed relationship? Are you in a cohabitation situation? Uh, because it's all good. Andrew,
Or
what are
you
your thoughts
single?
about
That's
this?
okay too. I say, or you
Yeah,
can
are
be
you single?
single.
That's
That's all
fair
right.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
No, yeah, I mean there's a lot there, a lot of good stats about kind of I guess love as millennials, especially in midlife. One thing that was particularly interesting. I'm surprised that the number of people who met online isn't higher. I just think that nowadays that's how everyone meets each other. But it's kind of nice that I guess people are meeting more in real life, or maybe not more, but continue to meet in real life. And
I think
I
that's a
don't,
really
yeah,
important point that you make because I feel like there's too much negative shit out there that says like, oh well, millennials just spend all their time online, and clearly the facts don't back that up
yeah.
with regards to relationships.
And I think it's worth noting too that I don't think one is better or worse than the other, whether you meet someone in real life or you meet them online through a dating app or something else. Like I think it's fine if you find someone that you love, then good for you. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right? But I just thought it was interesting. And that's how I met my life. It was in I met my wife rather, not life, my wife in real life. You know, we met at like a brunch event. And it was a nice thing that kind of started. We kicked it off, had a conversation, and then one thing led to another, and it kind of blossomed into something really great. So it's I think that can work, just sort of by serendipity, like you kind of run into someone, or again someone, there's a common connection, or you meet someone online, however it is. I think good for people trying to be out there, which is something else I was kind of um thought was a good thing, was on the stats you were kind of talking through, Mike, that gave me some positive vibes. Was it seems like a lot of people are out there trying to find somebody or are in committed relationships, which is also great. We've talked in some previous episodes about the importance of relationships and human connection, and this concern that more and more we can feel isolated and sort of socially isolated from each other. So I think that this is nice to see that a lot of people are trying to create those deeper connections in those relationships. um, I guess the other thing that kind of stuck out to me from what you were sharing with all those numbers was around marriage. You sort of like hinted on this a little bit with all this bemoaning about, oh, millennials weren't getting married. And I remember that being a huge point or a topic of conversation when we were maybe younger, like 10 years ago. Um, and people just need to get over it. It's like, calm down. It seems like it's fine. As you pointed out, like between marriage and cohabitation, it's pretty close to where it's been historically. I'll also say that someone who values marriage, who is married, who believes in marriage, um, that works for me, but it doesn't mean it works for everybody else, and that's fine too. Like just because I prefer that doesn't mean that everyone else needs to do the same thing. So I think we also need to take it easy on the whole. Not enough people are getting married. I think if you found someone and you're in a committed relationship, then good for you for whatever that looks like.
I'm in the same boat as you are. I found the statistics very hopeful.
Yeah.
Clearly, a lot of midlifers are finding the person that they want to spend the rest of their life with, in whatever capacity that may look like. Yet again, it's not necessarily marriage; could be whatever commitment they've made to one another. But I also got incredibly frustrated. You would not believe how many articles there are out there saying that millennials suck at love and they were ruining the world because of their lower marriage rates. In fact, there were a good dozen papers from shitty organizations, which I won't name.
Actually, yeah, where are you getting these papers from? As I wonder who are these people?
I think you probably know. A lot of U.S. based think tanks that were saying that we need to implement arranged marriage policies in order to boost those numbers and increase childbirth rates, which I was like, fuck you people. They're stupid as shit. They're using one baseline number of marriage rates to make an absolutely ridiculous fucking argument. But as I said, despite that, I found a lot of hope in these numbers. The biggest thing that I also appreciated was that it is real life situations. I mean, pretty much, I don't know if I know anybody that, any of our midlife friends that met online.
I can think of a handful of people I know, but the vast majority were in person, and not in traditional ways. Yeah, like not in school or something, but like after that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I love the fact that, it's the way it's been for quite a long time. We're really not that different. People are finding the true loves of their lives in those real life situations, and I think that's wonderful. The other thing that I found interesting, um, there was a study in Forbes that actually indicated that dating apps, and this was actually within the past month, the dating apps may be on their way out.
Oh, I saw that too, actually. Yeah.
Which is interesting because people find them, they've gotten too salesy. They're always upcharging you for things. They feel like they gamify dating. And so I actually find that pretty refreshing that, people are kind of walking away from these apps. Yet again, there's nothing wrong if people find that they're the person that they love on an app. I think that's wonderful. But I do find it a little refreshing because it pushes people to go back out to the bars or talk to their friends and stuff to find, folks that, they have in common.
Yeah. I mean, anecdotally, I'll say too, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but I'm thinking of, folks I know who are midlife, who are single too. And I mean, comments, they talk about like trying to go through dating apps or doing online dating. It just doesn't sound like it's a fun experience. So hopefully more people are kind of turning back towards how do we try to find places to meet people in real life.
Yeah. And that is great. I think it's great. And I'm really glad that Pew had started diving into this, to this number about who's living in a cohabitation situation rather than just marriage, because that's clearly, I mean, I went down a rabbit hole and there was just data point after data point after data set about, marriage rates. But nobody was talking about who's just cohabitating with one another or who's in a committed relationship. So good on Pew to actually start looking at this, because not everybody has to be in a traditional marriage. They can have a loving relationship. They can have kids. They can have whatever they want to, and there's nothing wrong with that. So these shifting views about marriage, I think, are fine. Marriage is seen by the majority of millennials as nothing more than a legal process now. So, why not? Why not cohabitate?
That's fine. I will say again, I'm pro marriage. There's also tax benefits. Going back to the tax man earlier, at least you get to have some additional deductions. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, We'll
There are
see.
other reasons to be married. I'm clearly just joking about focusing on the tax stuff. When my wife listens to this, I'm going to get a comment about what? Lots of good reasons to be married. Lots and lots of good reasons. Yeah.
So on the flip side of marriage, there's also divorce. And I think that there's an emerging trend that I want to discuss called the gray divorce. And we're seeing that occur a lot more starting in with midlifers and moving up. So according to Purdue University, overall divorce rates are at their lowest points in decades. But now a third of divorces involve someone over the age of 45. And in fact, the divorce rate for those over 65 has now tripled. This is hitting midlifers from two different angles. First, the over 45 divorce rate illustrates that midlifers are getting divorced, but they're doing so later in life. The second is as boomers divorce our parents, a lot of us are finding ourselves with divorced parents much later in life than we expected. So on the surface, this looks like a really bad trend that is developing because it is continuing to develop at a much faster rate than people want to admit. In some cases, it is a bad number because there's physical and mental abuse taking place. But when you dig into the leading reason, it's actually kind of sweet. Men and women are getting divorced in life because they developed a new relationship with someone else. Um, that's not to say that anyone in the relationship cheated. It's just they found someone that they're more compatible with. And as we live longer, we are changing our priorities to be with those that are more meaningful in our lives. Um, Unlike mothers and grandmothers, women today are much more financially independent. They have strong careers and great educational backgrounds. So it's most of the time, the overwhelming majority of time, it's these midlife women or older women who are taking charge in their future, and they are the ones that are initiating these so-called gray divorces. And again, I'm not trying to glorify divorce here. It is even no fault divorces can be ugly. They can be very painful for everyone involved. But I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that um, for a significant portion of the time, or for a significant percentage uh, of these folks, it's because they found somebody that they're more compatible with. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, Andrew.
Yeah. Divorce is kind of a tricky one because I feel like it's such a personal experience. It's hard to talk about it sort of broadly or in aggregate. At least it's hard for me to talk about it sort of broadly. Um, It's just I think it just sucks in general. It's sort of, I've a few friends who are in midlife who've kind of gone through divorce, mostly amicably. There's one I can think of where it was not amicable. Even the ones that were roughly amicable or were generally pretty positive. It wasn't like someone like a terrible situation. It's still just rough for everyone to go through. I think it's draining and it's just not a good experience. So it's hard to kind of think about it in a way where it's, I don't know, it's hard, I feel like, to talk about it broadly, because I do think there are lots of personal impacts to folks who go through divorce, even if it's for a good reason and they end up, better when they're through that process. One thing that I was thinking of as you were sort of talking about or setting this up, Mike, and I don't know off the top of my head, and I can't remember, but I still feel like the divorce rate among millennials and midlifers is probably lower than I think it has been for previous generations. I've seen that stat
Correct.
before. I think that's, yeah, accurate. And I kind of have a very non-scientific theory about why I think this is. And part of it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, in our first conversation, of people maybe not getting married right away or cohabitating first, is I do think that millennials and Gen Xers, to a certain extent, have all kind of decided to not rush into marriage. I feel like, with our parents' generation and generations before them, there was always this expectation of like, oh, you're supposed to get married right after high school or college or whatever it is. And just kind of, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what everybody does. That's what you're going to do. And I think for a lot of people, like, that didn't work out great, right? It probably wasn't the best time to get married. So I think for a lot of millennials and folks around midlife, we kind of waited longer to start that process. And so I think that, that might be one reason too why we're hopefully seeing, less divorce, or we're taking more time to get to a place where we find that the person who we want to spend our lives with. It's funny, my wife and I actually joke about how if we had met each other right after school in like our early 20s, we probably would not be married today, just because we were both very different people at the time. Like, I mean, you've known me for a long time. I was very different at 22 than I was at 25, than I was at like even 27, 28. And I think that's true of a lot of people. So I feel like there's definitely something there to the extent that, we've waited a little bit longer. And I think that's probably helpful in making sure you find that right person to spend your life with.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point, because that Purdue University study did illustrate that, like, among the 65 plus segment of these gray divorce folks, a lot of it was because these people have already been divorced once or twice before.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
so it's just kind of, let's do it again. The midlifer thing was much more like, hey, I've just found somebody that's more compatible with me.
Yeah.
So, like you, I've had about a dozen midlife friends who've gone through divorce. These were not situations that they went through or they took lightly. They did all the right things. They went to marriage counseling. They went to therapy. In some instances, they went to faith leaders. And sometimes it just doesn't work. Love is complicated.
Yeah.
And the fact that our personalities and our priorities change over time. And as a result, the way we love somebody also can change. I know from my midlife friends that it has been an incredibly difficult situation for their children.
That's true. Yeah.
Those children age, uh, you know, age range is like 5 to 18, so it's quite a range. But as I said, the couples that I know did everything possible to save the marriage, but they just couldn't hold on. And I know a young person who's 5, 7, or even 18 doesn't understand that in that moment, but they will grow up to understand it. I think they will realize that relationships are complicated. And if someone finds love with another partner later in life, I think there's nothing wrong with that, and that just the natural progression of the human condition. So
yeah, I guess so. I think too, like if you're in a very unhappy situation, I don't think just being in an unhappy situation just to be in one is helpful either. I mean, I definitely think people need to try to do what they think is best for them and for their family.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
But what do our listeners think? Please share your comments. All right. So going back to Valentine's Day.
That was a heavy one. Yeah, let's go back to something a little bit more fun.
Light. Don't worry. Next week's I've got already brainstorming ideas for next week's. It's going to be so light and fluffy, you won't even believe it. All right. I want to talk about what midlife men and women really prioritize as romantic. As Valentine's Day approaches, this may give our listeners some ideas rather than just buying the card and the flowers and the box of chocolates in the shape of a heart. So, what do they want? Midlife men and women want emotionally mature gestures. They want time with one another. They want to talk to one another. They want to listen to one another. They want their partners to be supportive, to pursue hobbies and friendships. They want emotional intelligence. They want acceptance. Midlifers have moved far beyond gifts as demonstrations of love, and they want to prioritize time, gratitude, and appreciation. They want small gestures. One of the things that has been popularized over the past 7 or few years is the 777 rule. That's a commitment to doing a date night every 7 days, a weekend getaway every 7 weeks, and a kid-free vacation every 7 months. I know you're going to have thoughts about that.
Oh, I've got thoughts on this.
I don't know about the 7 weeks or 7 months for it doesn't seem too much. But it's all about having time together, being together, experiencing something together, showing kindness to one another. All right, Andrew, fire away. What are your thoughts? You got thoughts?
I agree about, time is valuable, or not, it is valuable, but like that's what, midlifers are more prioritized and super important. I've never heard of this 777 foolishness that you're bringing up here. So maybe I'm just out of it and this is like a popular thing.
You're clearly not very romantic.
I guess not. Who are these people? Like, where are they finding the time to do this? Do these people have young children? If they do have young children, I'd like to go back to where are you finding the time to do this and to afford all these like trips and other things that you're doing? I just feel like the 777 stuff kind of is like blows my mind. If we remember, like, at the episode we talked about goals right around New Year's, and I said one of my goals was like a monthly date night or date lunch with my wife, and we've done that. We're so far 2 for 2, so yay. It's just like that to me felt like that was a good goal to try to reach to do that monthly. So I don't know who these people are doing it weekly. It's just crazy. And then weekend getaways every 7 weeks also seems like a lot. Like, we're excited if we can get away for like little weekends together, like twice a year. We feel pretty good about that. So again, I don't know where these 7 weeks and then a kid-free vacation every 7 months also just seems wild to me. So if anyone's doing this, I would love to know how you do it. In all seriousness, like, give me some tips. This just seems like crazy to me, especially with young kids. I don't know how people can do the 777 challenge. So I would love to be enlightened, but I question this.
Rich people.
I guess so. And again, do they have kids? That's my big question. Now, are the kids young? I feel like that, is it going to be a big differentiator, I would imagine. But I do think, as someone who has young kids, and it's hard sometimes for my wife and I to find like an hour together on a daily basis, just like quietly without dealing with the kids and work and other stuff. Like, I do think time really is so significant. I think that's where a lot of our gestures and kind of thinking about romance is in how do we spend time with each other in like a really intentional way. And I think, as I've gotten older too, I have a greater appreciation for time. And like, sure, it's nice to get a card or a little box of chocolates or flowers or whatever. That's fine. But like, I do think really kind of showing someone you love them is kind of giving them your undivided attention and wanting to spend like time just with them for an extended period. I do think that is probably among the more romantic things that you can do. But what do you think, Mike? What are your thoughts on these gestures and other insane things that people must be doing?
So here's the thing. I don't think any of this is unique. Talking about these gestures, I think, I guess this is probably something that midlifers have always wanted. A lot of people probably got lazy, and that's why the box of chocolates and the flowers and stuff like that became so popularized. People just got fucking lazy.
I think we also just live in a society that's like, just give things, like things count as like value or love. Like, it's funny. I tried to do before this some quick, very, again, non-scientific Google searches about like Valentines for midlifers. And all it was just nonstop, just like crap of like, buy this random thing or this personalized this and that. It's like, I think we just live in a world where people just push like buy things as a way to demonstrate your feelings.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably true. But a good relationship, whether it be with a partner or a spouse, has to be rooted in mutual respect and appreciation for one another. So that means anticipating one another's needs or just being there. And I think that's probably always been the case. The big thing for me is like the most successful relationships I have seen are the ones where there's still surprises, humor, empathy, things like that. So midlife guys, keep surprising the person that you love.
I think that's a good point. Or make them laugh, like just kind of have funny things that you all can share. I think that's a really good point too. Like, it doesn't have to cost tons of money. It's just
doesn't have to cost any money.
Any money, yeah. It shows that you care about the person because you're focused on them or trying to surprise them or want to see them happy. Like, I feel like to me that's another big thing, right? Is like I get a lot of excitement and joy when like I do something nice for my wife and she loves it or surprised by it or enjoys it. Like, I do think there's that piece of it too, as you went it's cool seeing the other person's reaction is like the payoff for what you're doing versus then having to actually get something.
All the surprises. Keep surprising. All right. So we've blown through another 30 minutes. If you've not done so already, please like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it means a lot to us. Remember that you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, and all your favorite podcasting platforms. And until next week, good luck, guys.
See ya.